Hey, what's going on, everybody? JerBer here. I'm going to do my first speed art in about a year and a half, and I actually did this for a commission. A friend of mine needed a overlay for his Pokemon Go videos, so I decided I would go ahead and take him up on the offer. And you're gonna get to see the funny. All right, so I'm gonna let you guys know right quick. I did this small sketch right here just to kind of like figure out how exactly I wanted to shape the picture, but the ending result is much better, I promise you. So right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to look at the moves. Arcanine will be using Flamethrower and Gyarados will be using Dragon Rage. So I'm getting an idea for how the moves work in the anime, like how they look and how they're presented. And basically right here what I'm doing is I'm getting a few references for Arcanine, and then I'm starting on my sketch for Arcanine. Now clearly in the idea sketch his snout was a lot longer, but since Arcanine favors more of a, I would say more of a, I guess it'd be kind of corgi-ish, and how his face is made and modeled and drawn. So I had to draw his snout a little bit smaller, and here I'm just basically trying to get a good idea for how I want him to be posed. Drawing dogs and canines is a lot more difficult than drawing humans, because humans, we're used to seeing ourselves all the time. So, and I don't look at dogs all the time. I basically went off the knowledge that I gained through one of my art classes, which basically taught you how to draw certain animals. The two that I chose to work on were canines and birds, since those are just about, with the exception of maybe cats, some of my favorite animals. Speaking of favorite things, Arcanine is actually one of my favorite Pokemon, so I've actually been wanting to try drawing one for a while. I've actually been wanting to start a type of like comic series or whatever for Pokemon, just kind of like my take on it. So I really wanted to do this. Like, he initially was like, well, why don't you just find pictures online and you can just use that. And I was like, no, I can draw it. Just give me a little bit of time. So basically right now what I'm doing is I'm getting the sketch of Arcanine like laid out solid, and so far it's coming out pretty good. Like, you know, of course Arcanine looks a little bit different because you see all the fur on his body. I hate the fact that I say that and it cuts away, but you see all the fur on his body. First I have to draw the body first, and then I can just draw details in. And right now I'm trying to put a more three-dimensional look on his face, because the way it was presented, it was very two-dimensional and it looked very flat. So I had to give it more personality and depth. And basically what I'm doing is right now is I'm drawing Arcanine's paws. There's never really any like indication that his paws would be anything more than just 3 separate toes and just kind of extruding up like a normal dog's would. Of course you would have to put more detail if you were doing anything but a Pokemon, because of course it's meant to be simplified in its cartoon. So that made it easier. What I'm doing now is the fur on his hind legs, and this kind of showed me what kind of artist I am when it comes to very I can't think of the word, but very fluid things like hair. It shows me that, because you see in some of the reference images that Arcanine's hair is very, very spiky and cut up, and there's many different things to it, but you see here I start doing very wavy, longer, bigger strands of hair. I almost feel like I was trying to draw a Super Saiyan Arcanine. Like, maybe this can be the sketch for Mega Arcanine if they ever decide to make that. So here I'm trying to basically get everything that I've taken or everything I've drawn so far and just make it look better. And so far it's coming out pretty good. And I think I'm just about done with this sketch of Arcanine. About at this point, I think I have to draw the front paws, and aside from that, it's pretty solid. And there I go with that. Then after that, came one of the more interesting bits and made it more resemble more of what an Arcanine would look like, which is these stripes. Which the stripes are really interesting. I had never like tried to pay attention to like how they were actually drawn, but personally I think it came out very good. Of course I had like a few more things with the paws, and after that I think I was done. And our Arcanine looks really good. I was personally really happy with how he came out. I was worried that it wouldn't come out so well. Here I am getting the color palette. Funny, I got 9 different colors, of which I only used 3. But we'll see more about that here in a little bit. Okay, so now I start on Gyarados. Now Gyarados was another one that was intimidating because I've never drawn a Gyarados, and Gyarados for the most part is easy, except for the head because there's so many parts to it. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to start a circle? And I figure maybe if I just start in the middle of the head, and that can work my way from there. And that ended up being the best thing. I didn't have to sit there and mess with it for the longest time. So I'm really fortunate and lucky with that. I'm drawing the lips right now, and then the, I guess, crown of the head. I noticed as I was drawing this, there's a lot of references to Gyarados and Poseidon or Trident, or I think it's Triton. But there's like a lot of references to how he's drawn, and basically I guess it's to indicate that he is the king of the sea, or at least he was for Generation 1. But to be honest, I don't really think anything is actually taken his place. I don't think there's very many royalty-based water Pokemon. So I actually got really lucky with how the head came out. As you can see, it's not very close to the reference image, which I thought was really good. I'm sure a fan did that, but I can honestly say that their depiction of it is very good. And here I'm trying to get a good size for the rest of the body, shaving a little bit off. Just trying to get good dimensions so nothing looks loppy. And then I'm doing the second bit of the head, and then everything from there, as you can see, is pretty easy up until the last bit, and which is trying to figure out what to do with the fins on the top of Gyarados, specifically on his neck region. And I'm doing his, I guess that would be a whisker, almost like a catfish whisker. And there I'm doing this side of his body. It's funny how little detail that you think these Pokemon have until you try to draw them. It's like, wow, I had no idea. And there I am trying to scale everything and make it look better. And they're doing the same with that one, I think. There we go. Alright, so Gyarados at that point is almost done. I think I add like 1 or 2 more things to him. No, he's solid. I think at this point, this is where I try to scale the Pokemon up just to see how they would look together. And of course, I have to do some resizing because they wouldn't have just fit on the screen together like that. I get a good idea, get a good size. I have to move Gyarados somewhat out of frame, but it's fine because it makes it look like there's more to the picture than what's being shown. I think at that point I'm cleaning it up, and then I'm trying to get because of course he's using it for Pokemon Go, I am trying to get like a normal screen dimensions, which is 16 by 9, but in landscape mode. Or no, that would be portrait mode, never mind. And here's where I start doing the line work. I mean, it's pretty basic at this point. I'm just taking what I've drawn already and making it cleaner. One thing I've noticed in a lot of art, specifically mine, that I've taken care of, that I encourage any other artists to watch out for, is when you're doing line art, you need to try and make it to where there's a lot of personality in the pose itself. So when all these sketches are gone, because it's kind of making the image a little bit busier, and it makes it look nicer. So when you get to the image again, it looks a little flat if you don't make it look interesting. Oh, by the way, if you guys had noticed at the bottom where I have the 4 subscribers away from 100 subs on YouTube, this was actually the stream where I hit 100 subscribers. So in a little bit, you're going to be seeing in the top left-hand corner where I had the stream showcase that I was getting 100 subs, and everybody was actually pretty hyped for it. It was really fun. That's probably like the most support from a group of people that I've gotten for my channel in a very long, if ever, time. I think at this point I was trying to show somebody. I constantly get asked if I do 3D art, and it always happens when I'm doing speed stuff. So you guys will have to excuse that, but at the very least you got to see some of my 3D stuff. So you have to see like how now I'm capable of doing both 2D and 3D. Actually, since I'm still doing work for Koala, once I'm done, I'm probably going to try and delve more into some 3D stuff, because oh yeah, this is also where Koala mentioned to me that I forgot Arcanine's tail in the original sketch, which is really good because I probably would have done the entire thing without incorporating it, so it's a really good thing that he brought that up. But probably once I'm done with Koala's thing and I don't have any more commissions at the very second. Yeah, see, this is the subscriber thing. Let's watch this for a minute. We're at 99. You guys should go subscribe before I hit 100. Oh, there we go. You're too late. Sorry. Alright, and then, but I want to do more 3D stuff because I'm not very good at it. I'm very good with 2D stuff, but I can't just rely on that and just do that all the time and just do 3D stuff when school calls for it. You know, I have to be more proactive about like getting my skills up with 3D good. I could probably get a job based on my animation skills in 2D animation. But if I try to get a job in 3D animation based off only what I've done for school projects, I would probably not get the job. So that's something I have to work for in the upcoming, probably next couple of months. I also need to relearn how to rig, because when I was taught for my milestone class, I didn't really get a good grasp of it. And we weren't really like forced to learn. And of course I don't really have to learn, but it's one of those things where if you're going into a field like that, you want to be capable of doing anything for any situation that you're put into. Say somebody quits and it kind of derails the project because you don't have somebody to do rigging, or somebody to do backgrounds, or somebody to do visual effects. You want to be able to cover your ass, for lack of a better word, when a bad situation like that happens, because you don't want to be like 2 or 3 weeks from a deadline and have nobody to help you out. I've always felt, because I've played in bands and stuff, and there's been a lot of times where I had to try and take care of the entire project myself, because I was worried that if I didn't, that the work would not get done. So I've been instilled with that mindset for years and years now, but it's something I encourage all artists and all people in the creative field to do, is just kind of make sure you can do just about anything that you would otherwise need somebody else to do. Truthfully, that's probably why I've gotten so good at video editing lately. Okay, so we've taken the base color line art copies of our Pokemon and brought them into Photoshop. And the reason why I've done that is because Flash is great for line art and easy coloring, but when you want to get a lot of detail into whatever it is you're drawing, Photoshop is bar none better. And as you can see, I put in detail to the tail that would not have otherwise been capable of doing in Flash. So usually when I'm doing art, not animations, because that would take way too long. This process right here probably took me, or this part of the process probably took me about 2 hours to do. So doing that for each frame of an animation would just not be realistic. But it's looking good so far. But of course that's not going to be our shadows, so what I do in a minute is I start testing some things, because of course I'm still learning. But what I do is I start testing different effects and things I can do with this particular layer, because right now it's set to shading, but I end up setting it to where it does this particular highlight thing. And so now, once I get it all cleaned up, because I kind of didn't think I would have to be super clean with it. Probably the next time I try to do something like this, I'll create a separate layer with just line art and put it on top. But now it gives this nicer color to everything, and it just livens the vibe of the picture up much more. Personally, I love how it looks at the very moment, and of course it only gets better and better from here. So here's me actually doing the shading. But I don't do much because the picture is in general very bright. I just do enough of whatever would be directly facing away, which would be the majority of the tail and some of the fur. And I try to get as light of color as I can, because I don't want to, because fur is not going to be super dark. It's only going to be kind of dark. And I added some blue to it just to make it more interesting, to add to the further contradiction of orange versus blue. So I started on Gyarados, and I'm basically doing the same thing, but since a lot of Gyarados is very sleek and hard, like a fish's scales would be, I don't allow as much straight, like, I guess you would call that strands, but like the individual strands that I have on Arcanine's fur, because it's very textured and it's supposed to look like that, whereas Gyarados is much more sleek, so he will need a lot firmer lines. This project actually made me realize how much when it comes to like actually lining a shade line or something like that up, how much I depend on the smudge tool, because that was the tool that I used the most in this project. And it's really good because you can take a line that you may have messed up and you can clean it up, and not only that, but you can create a sort of fake gradient by allowing the colors of the alpha, which is the things that aren't there, and the actual color themselves to kind of blend into each other. So now I'm attempting to do the flamethrower, and this was probably the part that I was most scared of because I had no idea if this was going to work. But to my luck, it ended up becoming a very, very good looking mixture. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at the picture to see the jagged edges of the flamethrower, because that's how Pokemon has kind of set up how fire looks in the show. So I try to imitate that as much as possible, and I will probably try to use that in future personal projects. So now that I have my base shape, I'm trying to put as much detail into it as possible to make it look more like what is shown in the reference. And then I try to add a blur to it just to give it the extra look that is presented in the reference. You guys can't really see it because it's going faster than it can show. And what I'm doing here is I created a clipping mask and added an extra color and added yellow and just basically scribbled in, because it's the main two colors of the Pokemon Flames, which is red and yellow. And here was an interesting part because this is where I tried to do Dragon Rage. I had no idea what to do for this, so basically I started by smudging black and blue together, and I got some interesting effects, and after a minute, as you can see, I finally got something that worked. And actually came out really nice. I was deeply surprised that this ended up working like it did. I was very much prepared to scrap the idea of using Dragon Rage and just go to Hydro Pump. So here I'm making the clash, which is basically just like a little flash between the two, and smudging it to make it look more impactful. And then I create another blur, so all three parts of the blasts have blurs, and then I'm creating a final thing, and that's just about it. Well, here's the project, guys. Alright, well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.